Hi, my name is Nick Bass, and I'll be talking about Dust Bowl migration, specifically focusing on John Steinbeck's novel *The Grapes of Wrath*, written in 1939. So, between the years 1930 and 1936, devastating drought struck the prairies of America and Canada, causing massive dust storms and agricultural terror. This period became known as the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl took place during the Great Depression, which was very detrimental to the United States economy to begin with. Um, these massive storms and destroying farms and creating safety hazards was basically assault in America's wound. The severe dust storms that struck the Dust Bowl states of America, which are Arkansas, Colorado, Kansas, Texas, New Mexico, and most importantly Oklahoma, caused an abundance of farmers to migrate to the west in search of job opportunities. The target for these migrants, California. California was seen as the best option to most because of the massive farms within the state. Being that those migrating were leaving their farms in search for farm work, um, this seemed to be a perfect fit. This is until 1939 when author John Steinbeck published his later to be critically acclaimed novel, *The Grapes of Wrath*, which focuses on Okie families traveled to California and their treatment upon arrival. And an Okie was the widely spread name given to the migrants, being that most of them were from Oklahoma. Though the book gained much praise on its portrayal of the Dust Bowl and the events that took place, a group out of California couldn't disagree more, that being the California farmers. After the book's publication, the farmers of California gained much hatred because of their portrayal in the novel being of cruel and harmful treatment towards the migrants. Because of this harsh portrayal, they felt forced to reply to the comments made by Steinbeck in the novel. And now, though *The Grapes of Wrath* is a fictional text, because it was published in 1939 while migrants were still working in California and the drought still remained strong, many believe the depictions to be true. Um, so that being said, the California Farmers Association hired author Frank J. Taylor to create the article *California's Grapes of Wrath*, also in 1939. This article attacks Steinbeck in multiple ways for the flaws within his novel and is created to clear the name of California farmers. After sifting through an abundance of research, something became very clear to me in that Steinbeck's novel, *The Grapes of Wrath*, was just that, a novel. It was an exaggeration of a number of events that did not play out in real life as they did in the book and caused a lot of issues. So if you want to get into it, we're going to talk about the background of migration process. When the Dust Bowl struck the western prairies of the United States, more than 250,000 people migrated into California. Now, this population count was taken between 1935 and 1939. It does not account for the thousands that arrived on train prior to 1935. The massive fruit farms in California made it a great place for the farmers of the Dust Bowl estates to find jobs. And also, prior to the Dust Bowl's existence, California was a great place for Mexican immigrants to work during the harvesting season because of the abundance of help needed by the farmers. One of the key misconceptions in the Grapes of Wrath is that the farmers did not want the help from the Okie migrants. And this was massively combated throughout historiography. One being that the large amounts of fruits that were grown within the farms of California had to be picked the day that they were ripe, or else they would risk the chance of becoming spoiled. Also, the influx of migrants allowed the harvesting season to become significantly longer and allowed farmers to extend their territory for more land for more harvesting. Um, and the job of being a farmhand didn't start with the migrants, actually. Prior to them, the Mexican immigrants would show up and they would arrive during the harvesting season, work however long the boss man asked them to, and then go back home when harvesting season's over and move on to the next job. They wouldn't stay. Um, but this all came to a halt in 1934 when the Mexican government offered immigrant families a piece of land upon returning home to Mexico, thus leaving the California farmers in a place of need. And the massive farms that they have created needed hands to be worked on, or else they would lose massive amounts of profit, thus being a perfect fit for these Dust Bowl migrants to come in and take those jobs that the Mexicans left. Another one of the many false accusations made by Steinbeck in *The Grapes of Wrath* was that the Jode families, which is the family being followed in the book, was their struggle to survive while living in the insufficient housing given to them by California. Now, the housing wasn't great, but it was sustainable. Each migrant family was given a wooden platform for a tent to be pitched on for only 10 cents a day. And the camps were also equipped with hot water, toilets, showers, and laundry bins. They could also help around the campsite with cleaning or other duties to help pay off their dues for staying. These campsites would have been more than enough for each migrant family had it not been for their inability to keep it sanitary. Many of the camps became ridden with skin diseases like smallpox and chickenpox, which spread throughout the schools of California due to the kids' exposure within the classroom. And this caused much unrest amongst the people of California. Some of the migrants even cut holes in their wooden platforms to create a private bathroom for themselves, and you can see how that can cause many health issues. A scene pulled from the Grapes of Wrath talks about the burning of the Hoovervilles, which were what the camps were, was a slang term given to the camps due to what happened during the Great Depression. And this scene was described as peace officers forcing their way into camp and burning the migrants' tent to the ground in an attempt to rid them off their land. But this was not the case. Peace officers were only informed to raid camps when health officials declared the camp to be a hazard to live in. So, upon permission of the health officers, peace officers would go into camps and burn down the diseased tents only in an attempt to make the campsite safer, not because they did not want the migrants' company within the state. It was also widely believed because of Steinbeck's novel that pregnant mothers are not given the proper care needed to effectively pass a baby. When in actuality, he said in the book, I think, that a camp manager would act as a midwife, so basically a caretaker for the woman. But in actuality, every single migrant woman that was pregnant was sent to the local hospital for care. There wasn't a single migrant woman who had to bear a child within the camp. So not only were they supplied with housing, but migrants who could not find a place on a farm, or migrants who did not have a place to stay, would be built a shack on the farm by the farmer who paid them. And so now we're going to talk about the wages. So when the harvest is on, the base wage for agricultural workers on California farms was $2.10 a day with board, as compared to $1 in Oklahoma, $1.35 in Texas, and 65 cents in Arkansas. So already there, it's a plus to work in California. The harvesting season is also much longer than the Dust Bowl states, being that they can last up to 10 months in California with all the work. Back home, the harvesting season would only last up to 3 months. And being that the cost to live in these camps was only 10 cents a day, these wages were more than enough for the migrants to get by. In the Grapes of Wrath, Steinbeck insinuates that wages were forced down by the Bank of America when in actuality it was a deal made between the farmer and the migrant themselves. There was no overhead really. It was just a kind of under the table deal. A farmer out of Salinas, California, actually paid his workers 60 cents a day and began selling half-acre lots of migrants to start like a lettuce farm for themselves. And over 3,000 of those migrants went and worked, who worked on the farm, paid for the half-acre lots, made a respectable living for themselves and their families during the Dust Bowl. So overall, Jonathan Steinbeck's novel, The Grapes of Wrath, was shown in the historical literature on the Dust Bowl migration to be an enormous exaggeration of the life of an Okie migrant. The struggle for food was proven to be nonsense through efforts made by the FSA to hand out on flour, corn, milk, beans, and other needs to the families. The wages were also higher in the state of California as compared to outside states. Their housing was given to them by the farmer unless they couldn't find a job in which they would live on a migrant camp. Everything was in place for these migrants to succeed with what they had throughout the Dust Bowl. It was up to the migrant themselves to be stoic and work through those hardships of migrating to make a respectable life for their family. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, you can email me. Thanks. Have a great rest of your semester.